0, 1. Let's get
Hello
started.
and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Berge and I'm your host. Welcome to episode 114 of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. I can't believe how far we've come and how quickly we've been growing in the best possible way. Recall that I think it was around the Wimbledon Championships we kicked off around, I think, 100, which was really cool to, I think, align those episodes. And also, since the French Open, we've been doing the dual, if you like, video and audio releases. As always, though, if you are new, I really would encourage you to track back to some of our earlier episodes that really dived into, let's say, the secrets to optimal performance success and the secrets to optimal coaching success. So they are some of my newer releases, but they also really dig deep into the scientific side and extrapolate the data in a more simplified context to really explain and form that baseline that we really do talk about almost every episode. So they really do lay a foundation and where we've essentially been going this season by diving into the latest rankings and results on the WTA and ATP tours respectively. But from my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking and the 7 Keys, but remember there are 12 there, well 11 specifically that are, well, non-fiction if you like, so it's an immense body of work. And I really do my best to simplify that, but I'm sure each and every one of you can understand that sometimes there are little pieces of data that can't be, or they're very, very challenging too. But nevertheless, I really do try to simplify through not just releases or the blogs, the articles on AIM International, but through those early episodes, which essentially is probably even through to 50 to 70 plus. So I really would encourage you to tune into them as well. Look, if you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. You know what we are all about, and I really do appreciate you being along, coming along for the ride. I wouldn't be here without you, so thank you. Look, today's episode's probably going to be a little bit shorter. Last week was a huge episode. I think it was our longest we had done to date. This week we only have a number of events because US Open is going to kick off in less than a week. Which is very exciting, but we essentially have only one primary event, so Cincinnati, that has essentially been underway over the past week. We do have some smaller events, and we do have another smaller events, or respectively, on WTA ATP tours. Tour. So we will have a look at that and how key players have been progressing and the rankings, but also I think look at maybe the key contenders leading up to the US Open. I think some are probably quite straightforward, but others not so much. But before we dive into that, I've got something really quick I think to mention at the beginning of today's episode, which is the news that has come off from the ATP Tour this week, or roughly as we are going live, and that is, unfortunately, I'll say, around Jannik Sinner failing 2 tests, and there are obviously understand conflicting views around that, and I thought I would share that it looks as though, because I really want to draw, let's say, comparisons, unfortunately, with obviously Simona Halep's case, that if you're not aware, head on over to AIM International. There's an op-ed there as well. But where I'm going with this is that it seems as though Sinner did not ingest the substance, and why he obviously failed those drug tests back to back in March this year. And it looked like it was something that he inhaled from someone else who was spraying a substance that was to do with helping an injury. So it could have been a spray in the sort to lessen an injury, to heal, or to help obviously that healing process. There are many sprays obviously on the market in that way, shape or form that you or I you have used previously or currently, and it looked like it was something that was unknown, but it wasn't something essentially found in high levels in any way, shape or form in his test results. So when I'm looking at that, or what I'm sharing by that, the difference unfortunately was for Halep, even though it was something she did ingest unknowingly, it increased the levels in her blood counts to a very significant number, unfortunately, even though it was ruled down to a 9-month suspension or from 18 months through to, even though it was 18 months off, but initially the 4 years. It's a little bit contradictory that Sinner was not forced to have time off between, say, March to now. There wasn't an investigation that was underway, but potentially it really shows the disparity between the ATP Tour and the WTA Tour. ATP Tour had their own investigation, had their players back. WTA Tour really didn't, I think, stand by or give Halep the benefit of the doubt and allow her to keep playing, from the best of my knowledge. And she really did go through a very, I think, arduous process, and she was proven innocent, and the WTA didn't have her back from that perspective. I think that's where I'm coming from, and that's really, I think, disheartening for a player of her caliber who'd been around for a number of years, won Grand Slams, and we're really looking at Sinner then, unfortunately, number one in the world, had recently won a Grand Slam 2 months later. Obviously the substances are found, but he's been able to play all season long. And I think that's a bit disappointing that it wasn't transparent there. But I really hope there's a discussion, hopefully a really healthy discussion around obviously the WTA Tour and essentially the governing body there of women's tennis, how they protect their athletes to make sure due and fair processes are undertaken, even their own, let's say, independent investigation to support athletes, which really looks like that's been the case for Sinner. So even though obviously they're two very different, I think, sets of circumstances, it's very apparent that one tour, the ATP Tour, had their players back, did, I think, the investigation, didn't publicize it until now, whereas the WTA Tour really let Halep's case out into the open, didn't protect the player, and I think their best interest, which I think being really transparent and endeavoring to be very objective here is disappointing from that perspective. That said, I think, look, US Open's only a week away. Sinner's, he's still able to play. He did have to forfeit the prize money, obviously, through March. Again, a bit, I think, upsetting potentially for some players that he was able to play. We don't really know the full story at this stage and in that given context, but I think it goes without saying there's a huge disparity there between, I think, both tours and obviously looking after their respective players. Okay, that's enough there. All right, let's dive into WTA Tour first before we head on to the ATP Tour. We're going to look at the results first before the rankings, because we do have some key movers, but it really will share essentially the seeds for the US Open, because a lot of players inside, I think, the top 20 or top 32 aren't playing this week. We do have a handful that may have lost earlier in Cincinnati, but it's worthwhile to pinpoint. All right, let's start with the Branquilla Open. We did look at the earlier rounds, but I just wanted to have a look at, let's say, the semi-final through to the final stage. It is a smaller event, but it really will, I think, showcase key players that may make some, let's say, surprise inroads at the US Open when we're looking at maybe third round or further. Third round, let's say round of 16 potentials, where we do see them tracking in these smaller events. And it actually happened at the US Open, and it does historically happen as well. So look, Brinquil Open in Colombia, we've got Maria, the number 1 seed, against Ruzic. Unfortunately, Ruzic did retire, so Maria did get a walk over there. And then the other half was Podoroska, the 4th seed, and Sobliva. That went to 4 sets to Podoroska. Noteworthy, Podoroska has been tracking at a different level than, say, the players ranked inside the top 30. But when you're looking at the final, Maria 1st seed against 4th seed Podoroska with the win, 6-2, 1-6, 6-3. So what I wanted to share here essentially is that we know Podoroska has been climbing in the rankings, but noteworthy is that these players are predominantly ranked inside the top 100. So they are still exceptional players in their own rights. But these smaller events where the players around this ranking range are looking to notch up additional points, and they may not get direct entry, say, into the 500, 1,000 events. So very good for Podoroska, and it looks like with her ranking that is going to shift higher, we will be hearing more of her, and that level of tracking will begin to be more streamlined with players, say, inside the top 50. It's going to be very noteworthy to keep an eye on. Okay, just the smaller one wrapped up there. Let's have a look at Cincinnati. If you have been obviously following along, you know the results. So bear with me. Round of 32 we're up to. We did look at the first round results last week. So if you're curious there, head back to last week's episode. All right, round of 32. Swiatek Gracheva. This was close. I tell you what, I was following this. Second set was absolutely nerve-wracking. Swiatek, I don't believe she had set points. It kept going to Gracheva by 2 points almost, essentially, with those set points. Potentially Swiatek did have that 1 or 2 match points, but Gracheva played probably the best set of tennis in her life in that second set. 10-8 that tiebreaker was. It was so close. But look, well done to Swiatek holding it together when she was this close from closing out the match and having to play another set. That was really huge. And from, I think, a mental standpoint, incredibly draining. So Gracheva couldn't keep up with Swiatek, as obviously was potentially anticipated in that third set, 6-2. 6-love, 6-7, 6-2. That said, though, really good effort, I think, from Swiatek. Really important here. This is Swiatek's first tournament back on hard court. I can't, I think, emphasize that enough. Remember, Swiatek had a huge clay court season, went to Wimbledon, didn't really perform that well, didn't have adequate time off. And you need to remember, Swiatek's clay court season was jam-packed. And in contrast, Sabalenka almost had one just as jam-packed, but did not have, let's say, the number of matches Swiatek had. And then Sabalenka had more time off. Sabalenka did not play Wimbledon, more time off as well. Swiatek played Wimbledon, didn't really perform well, then went back to the clay to play the Olympics. Sabalenka did not play the Olympics, had more time off, rehabbed her shoulder, and then has played, I've got it right here, Washington, Toronto, followed by Cincinnati. So by this third hard court tournament back, Sabalenka's got her groove. Swiatek, though, this is her first hard court tournament back. Really, really important to keep this in mind as we progress. Okay, round of 32, then we've got Sun and Kostyuk. Look, Kostyuk with the win here, 6-3, 7-5, but well done to Sun. Obviously, we know her from her standout performance at the Wimbledon Championships, but really good, I think, win for her there. Remember, Sun had that upset in the first round over Noskova. So very, very impressive there. Almost a total line with Kostyuk, but Kostyuk again, too good. All right, Andreeva Pliskova, very good for Andreeva, 2 and 3. Paolini Potapova, Paolini 7-6, and that was 7-2, 6-3. Sabalenka and Kokureto, 3 and 4. Svitolina Buzaz-Miniero, 4 and 1. Lynette Samsonova with that win, 7-6, 6-1. That first set tiebreak surpassed Swiatek's tiebreak, 12-10. That's huge. Keeping in mind, Lynette has been tracking as well this season. Samsonova, though, obviously favoured with that ranking, 10th seed. Ran away with it in that second set. Really shows, I think, that the mental fortitude for players inside, let's say especially the top 20, even when they're pushed, that next level they're able to bring in that second or third set, in contrast to players who are not quite there. And that's really where, let's say, the 7 keys and the 8 key comes into play. Okay, Evanesian upset Ostapenko in that second round. That's actually a huge upset. 3 sets though, 2-6, 6-2, 6-2. What's a little bit ironic here is that even though Ostapenko has lost in the second round, she has progressed in the rankings, which is very ironic. All right, we will get to that later on. All right, Pegula and Mikova. This is a really tough second round for Pegula. She's coming off a really good win, though, has been playing some really good tennis. The type of tennis we haven't seen since last season. Mikova, though, she's had a huge, I think, stint off. A good, I think it's 5 to 6 months, roughly, maybe a little bit more. Obviously had that wrist surgery, but she has been having some good results, then some maybe not so much, and some good. So this was tough. And look, Pegula with that win, 5-7, 6-4, 6-2. I would say a great match for Pegula, but also a really good performance for Mikova. A Townsend upset Kazatkina. That is absolutely huge and has pushed Townsend's ranking for the very first time into the top 50. Huge result. 6-1, 2-6, 6-1. Kruger, Schneider with the win there, 7-5, 6-love. Fernandez, Rybakina. Huge. Look, Fernandez coming off a really good, I think, fortnight. And look, for this type of win, Rybakina, we know Rybakina, she's had that form. Look, she made the semi-finals of Wimbledon. That's further than, say, well, Sabalenka did play further than Swiatek as well, and Gauff. So Rybakina was the only, let's say, of the top 4 there, but she really hasn't been able to continue that level of play since then. Fernandez, 3-6, 7-6, and that was 7-3, 6-4. So granted, that second set was really huge, but look, it was a very close match all the same. All right, Zheng and Frech. Again, Zheng's first tournament back, similar to Swiatek, since obviously the Olympics and her gold medal. Good performance here, 6-1, 7-5. Wozniacki, Pavlyuchenkova with that win, 7-5, 6-4. Interestingly, Wozniacki did get a win first round, which has been attributed to her recent ranking progression as well. Pavlyuchenkova first round did upset the 17th seed, had Dadna here. That is noteworthy. All right, Kalinskaya, Badosa. Kalinskaya definitely favoured here, although she hasn't been tracking as much, say, as she was the first half of the year. Those results haven't been as consistent with essentially why she's cracked into the top 20 and been around, let's say, between 17 to 15 in the world. She was 13th seed here. I believe she's currently 15 in the world. But look, Badosa with a huge win, 6-3, 6-2. Coming off, obviously, that huge win the week before. Putintseva, this was a very significant upset. Look, 6-4, 2-6, 6-4 against Gauff. Gauff is the defending US Open champion. Now, I think there's been some noise around Gauff, just, you know, her performance slipping, but I'm going to probably defer there. She's still been showing up throughout the Grand Slams consistently. Sure, she hasn't obviously won a Grand Slam this season, but she's still been consistently making, say, quarters, semi-finals of essentially all of the bigger events. Granted, this was one of the first that she didn't really progress through, probably not favoured to defend her US Open title, but I think that's a lot to take on. We have to remember golf is still only 19 years of age. She was, up until this week, number 2 in the world. Huge accomplishments. So even though we're seeing at least a three-setter loss there, it'll be very interesting to see how golf tracks. I'm not going to be surprised if golf makes the quarterfinals, semi-finals. Might be a little bit surprised at this stage if she does make the finals, but I'm definitely not going to write golf off in any way, shape or form. Okay, round of 16. This was really interesting here. We had a number of upsets. But look, Swiatek, Kostyuk, very different in contrast to, let's say, that second round result. 2-2, really impressive there, essentially because Kostyuk has been playing some really good tennis. So well done to Swiatek. Again, only second match on hard court back. Andreeva had a very big upset over Paolini. But look, it's 3 sets. 3-6, 6-3, 6-2. You need to remember, Paolini has had a huge season, probably the biggest season of her life. She is the most successful and consistent player on the WTA Tour over the past, I will say, 3 months. She made the finals of the French and she made the finals of Wimbledon. Not even Sabalenka or Swiatek or Golf was able to do that, or Rybakina or Pegula, any other player ranked inside the top 10. It is very, very significant. And she still continues to track. Granted, I think this is Paolini's maybe second, third event back. I'm not too sure if Paolini did play Washington. So look, this is an okay result here. Keep in mind, Paolini made the round of 16 or further at the Australian Open. I know it was at least round of 16 or further without having it in front of me, but that's really substantial. And I think where I'm going there is that when you make the round of 16, you know you are tracking. And I want to see if I can quickly have a look. But when we're looking at these metrics, it is absolutely substantial because Paolini, not only has she been tracking ahead of other players, it's just incredibly, I think, impressive from that perspective. All right, bear with me, and I'm going to find this because, yes, it was round of 16 and she did fall to Kalinskaya. Really, really interesting. And we know how Paolini has progressed since then. I just wanted to make sure I could clarify that for you. All right, Andreeva has picked up her form. So remember, didn't perform, let's say, to expectations at Wimbledon. Still had, I'll say, a relatively okay results. Huge performance at the French Open. Skyrocketed her rankings. And she's tracking again. We need, or I would prefer Andreeva to halt and to, let's say, make those round of 16 quarters before she starts making consistent semi-finals, maybe finals, another 2 seasons. That's not saying she's not capable of that in any way, shape or form. I really think probably Andreeva at this stage is set for another maybe semi-final berth. That said, I'm going to engage that the hard court for her at this stage isn't her preferred surface, in contrast, say, to the clay. We're yet to see clear tracking through there, but Andreeva is definitely, I think, set to come a barrier breaker inside the next season, which is very, very dangerous. All right, Sabalenka, Svitolina. This was a very good win for Sabalenka. Svitolina, look, 7-5, 6-2 to Sabalenka. Svitolina has been playing some, I'll say, some good tennis. Not the best as this time, not the best as this time last season, but still, despite the rankings, Svitolina is definitely top 20. Samsonova, MFC, Samsonova has been tracking this season 4-6, 6-love, 6-3. That's actually a very good performance from Evanesian there to push Samsonova to those 3 sets. All right, we have quarterfinal stage. This was really interesting here. Look, Swiatek Andreeva 4-6, 6-3, 7-5. I think that just underscores what I just said about Andreeva, hard court services, tracking on the ropes to become a barrier breaker. She just took the number 1 in the world to 3 sets. Granted, nonetheless, this is Swiatek's third match then back on hard, in contrast to, say, Andreeva. So a really good, I think, performance for Andreeva, but way to go, I think, for Swiatek to push through that. Definitely, I would argue, not Swiatek's best level. We are not seeing that at this stage. All right, Sabalenka and Samsonova, 6-3, 6-2 Sabalenka. That's actually a very good performance from Sabalenka there. Pegula Fernandez, well done to Pegula, 7-6, 6-7, 7-6. But look at that scoreline. That second set tiebreak went to Fernandez 7-1. The third set tiebreak went to Pegula 7-3. Look how close that is. Fernandez is playing really good tennis, and let's remember, I believe it was only 3 seasons ago now. I want to say it was 21, where it was Raducanu, Fernandez, 2 teams showing off in the US Open final. And look, it's really important, I think, to remember that Fernandez was there. And I think she does not get enough credit for that and how she has been tracking. So yeah, really, really important, I think, to note that Fernandez can be very, very dangerous on the hard court surface. So yes, it was 21. I just want to again clarify that. Right, other quarterfinal, Badosa, Pavlyuchenkova. Great to see Pavlyuchenkova in the quarters of, I think, a really big event here. But Badosa, this was very huge. Backing up those results, essentially, from the week before. 6-3, 6-2 to Badosa. That's very, very impressive. All right, semi-finals, Swiatek, Sabalenka. Hopefully you were on the edge of your seat as I was. Again, this is why I think I underscored the importance of the lead-up events, whereas this is Swiatek's first tournament back, first hard court tournament, and in contrast, Sabalenka played, again, Washington and Toronto right here. But then also, so it's Sabalenka's third event back. 6-3, 6-3 to Sabalenka. I believe this is Sabalenka's first win or first straight sets win against Swiatek, which is huge. But what I really want to underscore here is that Sabalenka was the finalist in the US Open last year against Gauff. She did win the Australian Open. Sabalenka is absolutely one of the favourites leading into the US Open. That said, again, this is Swiatek, only her first event back. She's essentially with other metrics ahead of Paolini on paper. So Swiatek is actually favoured as well. You need to put Swiatek, Sabalenka almost head to head, but I'm going to actually nudge Sabalenka ahead of that purely because Sabalenka's success on hard court surfaces this season and as the defending finalist from last year, it's going to be very, very interesting. Definitely rooting for Swiatek to progress, let's say, to the semi-finals. And because of how the seedings are going to play out, Swiatek and Sabalenka are not likely to meet each other until the final. And I tell you what, I will be absolutely thrilled if we get the number 1, number 2 seed in the finals of the US Open. And both of them are really, I think, at that level. And then, look, the next result here is Pegula Badosa. And look, Pegula with the win, 6-2, 3-6, 6-3. But for Badosa to take Pegula to 3 sets, who won the event last week, is very, very significant. And I'm very surprised that I am saying this because Pegula has not been showing up all season. Her performance is not aligned with the top 10 ranking, but all of a sudden the past, I will say 3 weeks, it really is, which places Pegula in the running, I would say, to a quarterfinal, potentially semi-final spot at the US Open. Very, very significant. Probably for that other 4th spot, I'm going to put Paolini there because she's been playing incredibly well. And look, I know I'm not putting Gauff there. She could very easily well be there, but keep in mind those 4 are really just going off, let's say, the performances so far this season. Look, Zheng made the quarterfinals of the US Open last year. She hasn't been tracking. Yes, she won gold, but I'm yet to see the consistency there that I really want to, see that is attributed to that peak performance, and we know what can be delivered. All right, the final of Cincinnati, if you haven't figured it out by now, Sabalenka had a huge win there, and why again I am putting her as one of the top favorites. 6-3, 7-5 over Pegula. But for Pegula to make the finals, that is very, very significant. That all of a sudden, she's very lucky, I think. She's been able to hold on to those ranking points from last season to keep her inside the top 10. And then come hardcourt season to really show up. And I think because of that, it's really playing into Pegula's hand come obviously the US Open. All right, a couple that wraps up Cincinnati there, and a huge shout out then to Sabalenka. That was very, very significant. All right, smaller event that is underway this week is Cleveland in Ohio. Haddad Mayer is the 3rd seed, so I just want to run down really quickly a couple of those matches. Haddad Mayer over Gulbik in straight sets, Busk over Trevisan straight sets, Burrell over Kaliva straight sets. Kenin is the 8th seed here, keeping in mind she's roughly ranked around, I think, 54 in the world. 3 sets win over Volonyets. Siniakova is the 3rd seed, 3-set win over Ishel. Buzaz Maniero, 3-set win over Gracheva. So remember, Gracheva took Swiatek to the 3 sets in Cincinnati. All right, Sorobes Tormo, straight sets over Wang. Stearns is the 6th seed, 3 sets win over Ushiyama. Look, 6-love, 1-6, 6-1. Tomova is the 7th seed, straight sets over Davis. Rus, straight sets over Bronzetti. Kessler over Scott in 3. Wang is the 4th seed, straight sets over Blinkova. Potapova is the 5th seed here, 3-2 over Parry. Schmidlova, now remember Schmidlova, she missed out on the bronze. So she essentially it was 4th, people will forget that, but she has stellar, absolutely stellar Olympics, but she's gone down 1st round to Torsen in 3. Minen over Christian, straight set, and Fernandez is the second seed here, but she has fallen in 3 to Bogdan. 1-6, 7-6, 7-2, 6-2. I'm going to attribute that to, even though it was in 3 sets, Fernandez has been playing a lot of tennis, and I believe even in Cincinnati she did win the doubles. So very, very impressive week there. Okay, and again, this is a smaller event, but it is a lead up to the US Open. So that will wrap up essentially at the end of the week before the US Open kicks off. So Cleveland, Ohio, we will finalize or get back to those results before the US Open kicks off. There's one other smaller event that is underway, and that is in Monterrey, Mexico. Is again a smaller event, but actually no, this one is the bigger event, my apologies, but Collins is the number 1 seed. She has been bumped outside the top 10, but it goes to show that essentially no top 10 play is in action leading up to the US Open. All right, so we do have most of the 1st round matches that have been done. It is a smaller event because it's a 32, so 1st round immediately goes to round of 16. Collins with a bye. She will play Erica Andreeva in the 2nd round with a win over Erica Andreeva with win over Kalina 1-4 in the 1st round. Lulu Sun, straight sets win over Paquet. Karl, 3 sets over Kudermetova, the 8th seed. Alexandrova is the 3rd seed. Rodriguez has fallen to Zarazua in straight sets. Martic with a good 3-set win over Zayo. Kronik and Yuan, the 7th seed, that match is underway as we speak. Noskova with a good win over Danila 0-1. Wang and Maria will play in the 1st round. That's still yet to get underway. Evanesian with a good win over Kokureto, straight sets there. Svitolina is playing. You definitely really need to favour Svitolina, I think, here to progress to the finals. But that'll be really interesting. She will play Evanesian in the 2nd round. Fretch is the 9th seed. She's going to play Podoroska first round. Podoroska, though, is coming off that title win, and you've got have to give probably Podoroska a bit of an edge there, despite I think the ranking ranges. Glushko over Volosko, 3 sets, and Tomljanovic has fallen in the first round over Osorio. Navarro is the 2nd seed. She will play Osorio in the 2nd round. Noteworthy, Navarro is on track to become a barrier breaker, and you really need to favour, I think, Navarro to make the quarterfinals potentially of the US Open. I think she's going to go into the US Open very underrated, but really needs to be kept an eye on. Okay, over to the rankings now to really, I think, dive into that. We will start at the 100, and welcome back to the top 100, Naimana, starting at 100. Parias Diaz has 19-point progression to 99. She's previously been ranked inside the top 100, but welcome back. We've got a lot of movers, I think, inside, let's say, that top 90 to 100 range. But I really want to focus on, I think, the really significant progressions to regressions. Maria's got a 15-point regression. She's at 87 now. Shmidalova, who we've just touched on, not the bronze medalist, did play the bronze medal match against Swiatek at the Olympics. She's had a 9-point regression to 84 now in the world, which is a little bit, I think, disappointing. I'm hoping that she does progress in the rankings, because she had a huge, I think, Olympics that unfortunately did not come with points. Yafan Wang's had a 16-point regression to 78 now in the world. Noteworthy, we've got Wozniacki, a 14-point progression, all from that 2nd round performance at Cincinnati. She's now at 70 in the world. Very, very significant. Similar to Badosa, they were both around 140, 115 in the world. They were tracking at relatively the same time around, let's say, that 110 ranking range as well. Badosa obviously has skyrocketed inside the top 30. Wozniacki, though, all the same, is at 70. And also really important, and I almost have missed, is that Osaka, she's had a 5-point progression to 85 now in the world. But Osaka, Badosa, and Wozniacki were all around that ranking range. Really important there. And they have all been tracking. Raducanu was a little bit outside that ranking range, but she's also been tracking, but she's steady there at 71. Really impressive and noteworthy. All right, a 21-point progression for Podoroska after her title win last week. She's at 67 now in the world. Okay, other, I think, big bumps here. We've got Makova with a 17-point progression. She's now at 51 in the world. Remember, prior to Wimbledon, she still was top 10. After Wimbledon, she really has, I think, regressed, unfortunately. Kenin is steady there relatively at 55 in the world. Anisimova, she's at 49. The WTA, for some reason, just this week has said that the US Open has given her a wild card, but with this ranking, there is no wild card. There's a bit of an error there. So Anisimova, it's great to have her back inside the top 50. Townsend, welcome to the top 50. A 5-point progression, 46 in the world. Very, very significant there. Okay, other noteworthy, I think, significant jumps as we're tracking inside the top 30, or just outside the top 30, is Yastremska and Bolter, 33 and 32 respectively. And Noskova is at 35 with a 4-point regression. All 3 of those players should probably be inside the top 30, or were a matter of weeks ago. Okay, Svitolina's at 1 at 28, really should be top 20. Badosa, a 9-point progression, 27 in the world. Very, very, very significant. Let's see how long Badosa can keep this new peak level of play up, and if she really can deliver that and bring that at the US Open. She's only been back at her peak performance for a short time, and it has been absolutely stellar with what she's been able to deliver, really showcasing why she was able to, I will say, make her way inside the top 10. Yes, she did make it to number 2 in the world, but her performances at that time, especially looking at Grand Slam metrics, did not correlate with that ranking. That may upset some people, but there was zero correlation there. It was very inaccurate, for lack of better wording. But how Badosa has been playing now at this point in time, if she was to make the round of 16 at the US Open, and that would push her inside the top 20. It would correlate. And the following season, she would break into the top 10. It would correlate. Really, really important and a very big differentiator there. All right, Pavlyuchenkova is relatively steady, a 2-point progression. She's at 26. Vekic has been bumped back. Just the 2 is at 25. Fernandez is up to 24. Mira Andreeva is up 3 points, new ranking high to 21 in the world. You need to really say that if Andreeva has, I will just say, a mediocre US Open, she's got to make the top 20. Very, very significant there for, I think, the 17-year-old. Absolutely huge. Azarenka's back 1 to 20. Kostyuk's up 2 to 19. Schneider has broken into the top 20, I think, officially, not just 20. She's now 18 in the world. Very, very significant. And look, for those of you out there unsure of how am I going to bump up to the top 20 in one season, Sinead is the perfect example. She started, I think, the year around 70, 80 in the world. Look, top 20, here we come. And look, it happened to Swiatek in, I think, her first peak year. It's happened to Paolini, even though she wasn't that low in the rankings. She's having a stellar year. Same with Kalinske. We've had a number of breakthrough players on the WTA Tour this year, which is quite an anomaly, but really, really, I think, significant nonetheless. All right, Keys, Navarro, Kasatkina, they're steady at 14, 13, 12 respectively. Collins is back 1 to 11. Top 10, here we come. Ostapenko, she's already been a barrier breaker this season. Then we've got Sakari just back the 1. Krejcikova's up the 1 to 10, 9, and 8. And top 7 are relatively the same with Zeng, Pegula, Paolini, Rybakina, followed by, we've got Gorf and Sabalenka just switching places there with Swiatek obviously at 1. Noteworthy that it looks like Swiatek, she's tied with Barty now for 170 weeks at, I think, with Henin. And she's only got a few more weeks before I think she ties with Barty. And it looks like, where I'm going, is that irrespective, I think, around or points-wise, Swiatek should be able to, I think, with a round of 16 performance at the US Open, surpass that. It'll be very, very interesting to see, especially also how Sabalenka tracks at the US Open. And if I think Swiatek breaks not only let's say, the top 10 best tennis players of all time to hold on to that #1 ranking, but she could very well make the top 6. And we will find that out, I think, by year's end. Very, very exciting. Okay, let's head on over to the ATP Tour. We've only really got this week and Cincinnati to look at. So let's have a look at Cincinnati first. Round of 32, we are up to, and this was Sinner's, I believe, first primary event back, or maybe it was his second. Please correct me there. But I'm pretty sure, yes, Sinner potentially, he did play last week, but we're trying to get some traction here. But look, good win over Michelson in the round of 32, which then jumps to the round of 16. So over Michelson qualifies 6-4, 7-5. Thompson, really good performance over Baez, 2 and 4. Nakashima over Fils, 7-5, 6-3, and that was 7-3. That's a very good win for Nakashima. Fils has been tracking. Rublev over Zhang, 4 and 3. I'll say expected there. Zverev over Kakanakov, 3 and 2. Zverev is definitely going to be a dark horse. Is definitely underrated. Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic gets predominantly all the attention. Zverev and I think Medvedev are flying under the radar when it comes to the US Open. And Rublev may very well have a breakthrough, potentially semi-final there if he continues to track. All right, Purcell has fallen to Carino Busta, 3 and 3. Shelton over Echeverry, 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. Look, first set tiebreak, 8-6 to Echeverry. A second set tiebreak, 9-7 to Shelton. That's very huge. Well done to Echeverry to push Shelton all that way. Mrazan has upset Dimitrov in the round of 32 in 3, 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. Hurkacz, good win over Nishioka, 3-6, 7-6. 7-4, 6-1. Koboli over Dundee, 7-6, 3-1. Obviously retirement there. Mazzetti has fallen to Tiafoe. Very, I think, interesting and noteworthy. Mazzetti's had a huge season from the French to the Wimbledon to the Olympics. Remember, he is the bronze medalist there. Very, very significant. Tiafoe, though, has not been tracking this season. He's been hovering around. Well, he was outside the top 30, then slightly inside the top 30, then outside the top 30. And he's had a very, very good week. I won't spoil it just yet. So, look, hard court surface has arrived. We know Tiafoe typically peaks at the US Open, not at the Australian Open, but the US Open for some reason. And look, 3-2. Lecheka over Medvedev. That is actually a very big upset. 7-6, 7-2, 6-4, especially again with the US Open around the corner. Medvedev is last year's finalist. Obviously, it was Djokovic and Medvedev. Really important there. Medvedev has won the US Open previously and been a finalist on more than one occasion there. So I think when we're looking at other players in that lineup, this is very, very important. All right, Agor Elisame upset Ruud, 3-1. Felix has had a very good season as well. I will say Ruud on the hard, it's really not his favoured surface. So I'm not going to place Ruud, I think, in the mix. Maybe second round, third round, probably not round of 16 as much as obviously his ranking should place him there. Draper and Tsitsipas. Draper with a very good win, 3-6, 6-4, 7-5 over Tsitsipas. Again, probably not going to position Tsitsipas inside, say, the quarters. He could make the round of 16. We have seen Tsitsipas play very good on the hard courts previously, but going off his most recent level of play, again, probably ahead of Ruud, but not too far thereof. Rune over Borges, 3-7-6, and that was 10-8. Rune is starting to track. Really important that he has switched his coaches, just with the one coach now, does not have, let's say, Serena's former coach in that lineup. And I think it's starting to show in his tennis almost overnight. And we are starting to see Rune really, I think, with some core metrics. And even though he's seeded here 15, we know he's top 10 and he has that regression. And yes, our predictive analytics have highlighted that. And we've said over and over again why that regression has happened. But I'm not going to be surprised if Rune finishes the year inside the top 10. If he has a very solid US Open run and thereafter. Otherwise, he'll start fresh next season. Monfils over Alcaraz. This was a very big upset. 4-6, 7-6, 7-5, 6-4. Well, one, look how close that scoreline is. And two, Monfils, you can never write him off. And again, Alcaraz has had a very big season. So I don't think he should be that hard on himself from this perspective. I believe Alcaraz did make the semi-finals of the US Open last year. He did obviously win, I believe it was the US Open the previous year. So you cannot write, I think, Alcaraz off. However, given the winner of Cincinnati, you need to obviously favour Alcaraz after that. I don't want to spoil it. Okay, let's head on over now to the round of 16. And we don't have too many surprises here. Sinner had the walkover over Thompson. I think that really served him well, unfortunately. Hopefully we see Thompson back at the US Open. Now, Rublev over Nakashima, 7-6, 6-1. Zverev over Carino Busta, 7-5, 7-6. That was 8-6. Shelton over Marizan, 4-3. Hurkacz over Koboli in 3, 6-3, 3-6, 6-1. Tiafoe over Lecheka, 6-4, 6-7. And that was 12-10, huge, and then 7-6, 7-5. That's a very, very big tiebreak, all back-to-back. Draper over Agor Elisame, 5-7, 6-4, 6-4. I'll say that was the primary upset. Rune over Monfils, 3-6, 6-4, 6-4. So relatively on the men's side, we're seeing a straightforward. We did see most of that on, let's say, some of the women, but most of the men here are, I think, following through as far as seedings are concerned. But let's have a look at this. Quarterfinal, Sinner over Rublev, 4-6, 7-5, 6-4. Very good performance for Sinner. Zverev over Shelton, 3-6, 7-6, 7-3, 7-5. Huge win for Zverev, but way to go for Shelton. I believe Shelton did make the semi-finals of the US Open last year. Probably this year we're looking at the quarterfinals, around 16 quarters. But Zverev with that scoreline, you really need to favour him to make the quarters, semis, potentially another final. And you need to remember, Zverev's been tracking this season and he is probably ahead. Well, no, on paper, he's ahead of Djokovic. He really is. It really comes down to Alcaraz, Sinner and Zverev, and on paper, obviously, Alcaraz has 2 slams to his name, Sinner 1 slam to his name, and Zverev has been showing up without a doubt. Djokovic, unfortunately, yes, he has been showing up, but Zverev really edges him out ever so slightly there. TFO, very good win over Hurkacz, 6-3, and then Hurkacz walkover. Hopefully Hurkacz is fit for the US Open, but very good, I think, first set, irrespective for TFO. Rune over Draper there, 4-2. Good win there for Rune. All right, semi-finals, I think, as potentially anticipated, we've had Sinner over Zverev, 7-6, 5-7, 7-6, but check out this scoreline. That first set tiebreak was 11-9. That third set tiebreak then was 7-4. That is huge. There's this much in it between Sinner and Zverev. And look, if you are listening to only the audio only, I'm trying to show absolutely almost no space between, obviously, forefinger and thumb. Very, very significant. And it proves that I'm not going to be surprised if Sinner and Zverev make the final of the US Open. And Zverev gets the win. That said, it's going to be very interesting to see how the seeds fall out. It looks like potentially we could gauge that Sinner, Zverev in one semi-final, Alcaraz and Djokovic another semi-final. And as far as all 4 of them have been tracking, they most likely would progress that far, although Djokovic probably not, purely of how he has been tracking. That said, he won Olympic gold, and I think it would be absurd to write him off like the Olympics. So you can never, absolutely never at Grand Slam level, write Djokovic off. All I can share and be transparent with is the data and how he has been tracking this season. Yes, he's won a gold medal, but he has not won a title this season. TFO over Rune, yes, this was an upset, but when we're looking at how TFO can play on hard court, how Rune has been regressing, yes, he started to have some traction and progress, but look, TFO 4-6, 6-1, 7-6, that's huge, and obviously 7-4 in that tiebreak. Sinner TFO in the final, 7-6, 7-4, 6-2 to Sinner. Very, very significant and will favour Sinner leading into the US Open. All right, last event. There's only one event underway on the ATP Tour this week, and that is Winston-Salem in North Carolina. Baez is the #1 seed, and as I track down the 2nd seed in play here, well, there is, it's not shown. We're seeing the 17th seed, which is a very, very unusual. We've obviously had a withdrawal there. All right, so we do have a couple of matches that have been underway because it did start earlier this week. So, all right, Korik over Nagal, 4-2. Kazuks over Van de Zandschulp, 1-7-6. Hijak is the 17th seed with a bye. Rindenek, 12th seed with a bye. O'Connell over Kirschmeyer, qualifier 5-4. Goffin over Muna in 3. Darderi, by first round. Cerulando, wild card, 3rd seed by the first round. Shavava, Lucky Loose over Jajeri, straight sets. Muller over Lestian in straight sets. Kotov, 15th seed by. Casanegro, 10th seed by. Strickler over Korea in straight sets. Shang over Komisana, straight sets. Navone with a bye and Borges with a bye. Say both Wild over Duckworth in 3. Tian is a qualifier over Shlukake, another qualifier, so that was in 3. Marazan and Shevchenko, both of them have buys. Karina Busta, straight sets over Kumar. Vukic, three sets over Evans. Manorino and Echeverry, both of them got buys in the first round. Bergs over Pelka in 3. Fuchs is over Daniel in 3. Mitchelson and Gaston with buys first round. Eubanks over Walton in 3. And Mute over Majiga in straight sets. And again, Suflin has been given 17th seed where the 2nd seed should be. That was a lot. Okay, our second round, round of 32. So we do have a couple of those matches that have been underway. Korek has upset the number 1 seed Baez 3 and 4. Rinky Hijagata has upset Kazuks in 3, 4, 6, 6, 3, 7, 6, 7, 4. Rinjanek over O'Connell 3 and 4. Goffin over Darderi 2 and 4. Sujava over Sorolundo, the 3rd seed 4 and 4. Kotov over Muller in 3. Sonigo over Stricker straight sets. Shang over Navone straight sets. Borges has been upset both Wild 7, 6, 6, 2. Tien over Marazin in 3. Carino Buster in 2. Vukic over Manarino in 3 sets. All right, and we still have Chevry and Burgess, Fuchsovic and Mitchelson to play out, and Gaston and Eubanks to play out, and Mute and Sorflin to play out. Gaston, my apologies. We know Eubanks has got that win over Gaston, but it'll be very, very interesting to see who, I guess, continues to track there. It's going to be, I think, quite interesting to see. I probably gauge that the winner or semi-final winners here may make 3rd round appearances at the US Open. We might have a breakthrough of the round of 16 like we did have Rinky last year. But I think I really want to give more weight to Cincinnati. Okay, let's head on over to the rankings because we do have a couple of movers this week. Starting with the top 100, we have DeJerry has broken into a 6-point progression here to make the top 100. Congratulations and well done. Vukic is up 3 to 94. Purcell has a 23-point progression to 91. Goffin is up 2 to 90. Rusevori, a 10-point regression to 83. 19-point progression to Jazumo to 81 in the world. And we've got Lakovic, a 12-point regression to 66. That's very significant there. All right, I'm looking for the big movers this week. We've got a lot of, I think, 1s and 2s. Inside the top 15, Monfils, just the one at 45 of a progression. Zhang, a 3-point progression to 41 there. Macaque 39, a 1-point progression. Borges is a 4-point to 35. Lecheka a 3-point to 32. All right, top 30, here we come. We've got Analdi at 30, Sorolundo 29, and here are the seeds essentially playing out. Thompson's probably just going to miss out on a seed. He's had a 1-point regression to 33 now. Baez is back 21. TFO is the biggest mover, I think, inside this ranking range. 7-point progression now to 20 in the world. We haven't seen TFO inside the top 20, I think, for the best part of the last season since that regression, but very, very impressive. And we've got Olga Alisame back inside the top 20. Former top 10 player, and Felix is on the road, I think, towards the top 10 again, probably more so the top 15 by season's end if he has a good performance at the US Open. All right, then we've got Mazzetti, Humbert, 18, 17 respectively. Court is back 1 to 16. Rune is up 1 to 15. Paul is back 1 to 14. Shelton's up 1 to 13. And then we've got Fritz. Paul, Shelton, and Fritz really have been playing... they've been exchanging places, etc. I was looking for musical chairs. But Paul's been primed as a barrier breaker potentially this season. I'm not going to be surprised if Paul makes the quarterfinals of the US Open. Let's see how Shelton tracks. If he can, I think, make that semi-final appearance again, probably I'm going to put him at a quarterfinal there. Fritz, probably a dark horse if he can maintain his level of play. Potentially quarterfinals, semi-finals. If he plays some of the best tennis of his life, Fritz could very well make the finals of the US Open. That could be really, really interesting. However, he's not, let's say, inside that top 4 that I have mentioned from the likes of Sinner, Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Zverev. Noteworthy as we get inside, I think, the top 10. Look, Tsitsipas is just outside the top 10, and there's only 10 points separating him from de Minaur, with de Minaur having a couple of weeks off due to that hip injury. Okay, so it looks like if Alex cannot, let's say, make the round of 16 quarterfinals of the US Open, and Tsitsipas does, he will be bumped out and Tsitsipas will be bumped back in. Both of them have been inside the top 10 this year nonetheless. All right, then we've got, I think, only by roughly around 200, a little bit more, is Dimitrov at 9, and then another 200 we've got Ruud, and then only another 200 roughly Hurkacz, but then there's a very big jump with Rublev. There's roughly around 800 separating 7 from 6. Before then we get to Medvedev, which is a bigger leap. There's roughly around, I will say, 1,400 points separating the two, where Medvedev is firmly at 5, but then there's 800 there where Zverev is at 4. Interestingly, between Zverev and Alcaraz are only roughly a bit over 300 points. That's quite noteworthy. And between Alcaraz and Djokovic is only 100 points. However, between Djokovic and Sinner is a little bit less than 2,000 points. Very significant, which means Sinner can lose his place as number 1 if Alcaraz or Djokovic really does triumph. And Zverev, if he wins potentially the US Open, he will be bumped up to number 2. There's a lot of, I think, significant movers there. Whereas on the WTA tour, if Swiatek makes, I think it's the round of 16 at least, I don't think she will actually lose her ranking. Whereas on the ATP tour, there's more, I think, margin for one of those players to be replaced. Okay, I really want to wrap up today's episode. So then vying up or leading up to the US Open, again, only a couple of days away, we can dive into a bit more of who's who when the draw is released. It has not been released as of yet. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for listening. To grab a copy of my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Rankings, or the 7 Keys, or any of essentially any of those 12 books, head on over to AMA International, or irrespective where you're based in the world, you can grab a copy also on Amazon. For any comments or questions, head to AMA or Topic Thread, the social platform set on data privacy, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to AMA International, or you'll see our social handles in the episode notes. They have been updated. To catch up on our blogs, head on over to AMA International and look for our blog tab, or head on over to Substack with all links again in the episode notes. For something different, head on over to Pink Octopus Books. That's where my fictional release is. For something left of field, visit Spruik for some random polls. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above would be absolutely phenomenal. And look, for something left of field, visit Spruik again, random polls, Pink Octopus Books, AMA International, Topic Thread. And look, for those of you who are interested, we do have scholarships available on AMA International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to progress your ranking towards the top 10, look at those micro discrepancies to nudge you inside the top 5, or toward that maiden Grand Slam win, or to achieve replicated success. So don't be shy and come and say hi. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.